guys, so a lot of you have been asking about how to take good notes and if I had any tips for you. So today I thought that I would tell you how I take my notes. First of all, what you need is lined paper. I like lined paper better. It keeps everything kind of organized and in order. It can be either in a spiral notebook or a composition notebook or just loose leaf paper. I prefer a spiral notebook, but it's whatever you like best. And then either a pen or pencil. And then when you're in class, obviously you need to pay attention the best that you can. It's all about, paying attention to what your teacher is saying. And I've come across two types of teachers in my life. The type of teacher that will write every single word down that comes out of their mouth on the, board behind them. And then I've come across the type of teacher that will stand in front of the class and lecture the whole time and write very few words on the board behind them. So my advice would be for the teacher that writes every single word down on the board, you could either write them all down if you really want to be prepared like that, but I will just usually write down what I think is important that they're saying, and then I won't write down every single word that they say. I'll, kind of paraphrase things, shorten things, and then I create kind of a shorthand or abbreviate things. So for example, if the word was government, I would just write it GOV''T instead of having to write the whole thing out. Because for the teacher that lectures the whole time and doesn't write everything on the board, they usually talk pretty fast and you can't write down every single word that they're going to say. So you need to find a way to kind of shorten things, paraphrase them, have some abbreviations for things. So that's kind of how I do it. And also for the teacher that only writes few things on the board, anything that they do write on the board, I would write down because obviously they think it's important enough to write it down. So I would, put a star by it or something, especially if they say that this is going to be on the test. If they do say that, I would underline it, highlight it, bold it, anything that you can do, stars, anything that when you go back to look over your notes before the test that you can, know that this is definitely going to be on there. Okay. And while you're listening to your teacher, I know it's hard for a lot of people to really pick out what is important. So I will usually write down any definition that they say. If they define a word, obviously they think it's important enough for you to know it, so I would write that down. And if they show any emphasis at all about a particular thing, maybe their voice changes or I don't know, you just kind of can tell that they know that this is important, I would write that down as well. And like I said, if they say something's going to be on the test, I would write that down and bold it, underline it, do as much as you can to make sure that you know to study that. Okay, so now I'll show you guys kind of how I keep my notes organized on a piece of paper. So this is an example that I kind of made up for you all. So as you can see, I usually do the chapter number and the chapter title on the top of the page. I'll underline them just so that I know flipping through what chapter it is. So if there was a question that I, had about a chapter or I couldn't remember a certain thing that the teacher said, but I knew what chapter it was in, then it's easier to find. And also I put the date for the same reason, because if you know what day maybe, your teacher said it, but you couldn't remember what chapter, then you can find it very easily. And then I will always do the chapter heading or the section name and underline it underneath the chapter title. Because usually in chapters in a textbook, they'll have, the main title of the textbook, and then they'll have little sections within that chapter, explaining different things. So that's kind of how I keep that organized. And then I will always use bullets for the main points, that the teacher is saying. And then if there's anything that kind of explains it a little better, or I don't know, any more information that I feel like needs to go underneath the first bullet, then I'll use little dashes to write that underneath it. And then examples, I indent a little bit more. So like a worded example, I'll just write it. And then down here you can see kind of like a picture, like if there was a diagram or something that you needed to draw, how that would, kind of look on your paper. And then you just keep filling it out, all the way down until you're done with class. And another piece of advice that I would do is make sure everything is spaced out. I would do, a space between, the major sections, just so that at a glance you can kind of see everything, it looks organized and put together, and it's not all crammed. And then when you go back to study, it can be kind of more effective because you're not, trying to find all this stuff and it looks all hectic on your paper, and then you get all stressed out. So if your notes are, kind of calm and organized, then when you go back to study them, then hopefully you'll be more relaxed and more prepared. I don't color code them as much as I used to. In middle school, I used to color code absolutely everything on my notes. Every definition would be a certain color, every example would be a certain color, the chapter headings would be a certain color, and I found that really effective when I was younger, that it helped me to remember them, because when I was back on the test, I would be like, okay, that that word was in this color, so that means it was, part of this section, or it made sense with, these words that are around it. I could kind of picture it in my brain. I don't know if a lot of you can do that, but if you can, that's kind of one way that I know it helped me, was to kind of color code things, just so that when I looked back on it, I could remember, kind of what color the words were, so then that kind of helped me know kind of what section or what part of the test that was on. So that's kind of how I take my notes. That's really all that I do. The major thing is to just pay attention and to write down the things that you think are most important. And I hope that this helped you, and if you all have anything that I need to clear up or any questions or whatever, just leave them in the comments below, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye!